I'm Don Finn. I am the past president of the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and I also serve as the chair of the publications for the coalition. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's author interview. We have two authors from one of the articles that is featured in our current edition that focuses in on digital literacy. And so I'm very, very pleased to facilitate the discussion today to hear a little bit more from these folks and the piece that they have produced for the COABE Journal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start and ask our authors to introduce themselves. So Saul, I'm going to throw it to you. Please, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
I'm Saul Carliner. I'm a professor at Concordia University in Montreal, and I have a background in training and development, and that's where most of my work has been.
Thank you. Thanks, Saul. It's good to meet you. And Yvonne.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Thayer. I am a researcher and consultant now for adult ed and workforce development programs, have a background in adult education in Virginia, and live in Virginia now.
Well, it's great to meet both of you, and I'm really excited about the article that you have put together along with your co-author, Margaret Driscoll, that focuses in on a very contemporary issue having to do with the preparedness, the digital preparedness of adult education students. And so, Yvonne, let me start with you. Let me ask you, why did you write this article for the COABE Journal?
Well, Saul and Margaret and I have spent the last 5 years researching what is happening in the workplace, how it's affecting workers, how it's affecting acquiring jobs, keeping jobs, the reskilling, all the things those of us in adult ed know about. And we've looked at it intensely for a long time and produced a book called Career Anxiety, which we're very proud of, and we think is helpful for those who are working. But I wanted to do this article for this community in particular, because I think a lot of times in the adult ed world, we don't think too much about research. We're so busy with programs and getting the best instructional materials. We don't spend a lot of time doing that. And this, what we selected for this article speaks directly to program managers, to instructors, both of education and training, and the learners themselves to help them. And we identified 3 areas in particular that we've always been concerned about in adult ed, but I think have a message that's of particular interest. One of those is about how we get a job, how we're selected for a job. We've always done a lot with our learners about that, but we have new information about that. The other one is the responsibility to get the skills you need. And we have a message about what that's going to look like. And then finally, financial wellness, which we've done financial literacy for a long time, but we've got new information about that. So we have tried to take some of these changes that are occurring and specifically talk about what it means to the adult ed community. So that's why we wrote the article.
Great. Well, thank you for that background and that justification. What I found in this article is there is a tremendous amount of just wonderful information, and I'm wondering from your perspective, Yvonne, how do you envision adult education practitioners benefiting from reading the article, and in turn, how might that benefit the learners that they work with?
Right, because to me, it wouldn't have been very useful just to write a bunch of research down. We want to know what to do with it. So I think that, first of all, it will kind of be a wake-up call for a lot of folks about what's happening out there already in the workforce that we may not see in some of the middle skill jobs that we're working with learners on, but it is coming. And what we did was at the end of the article, we have a discussion about, some of this research, and we've got about 10 actions or issues to consider that I believe program managers can sit down with their instructors and talk through these. And I also believe states can look at state initiatives around these. So it benefits the learner if we begin changing some of the things we're doing to make sure that they know about it. And it also, I think, addresses keeping our programs up to date so that we know what's coming and what's ahead. So we tried to do that in the article to make it useful.
Definitely, and that's great. And I think that the emphasis on the learner as well, and being really learner centered in the way that you presented this information, I think that really is very, very helpful to get folks to look at the research and to apply it practically. So Saul, let me ask you, maybe a little bit of overlap with this question, but from your perspective, what do you hope that the readers will take away from this article?
Well, I'm just going to reiterate a point. I'll start by reiterating a point that Yvonne just made, and that is that we hope that people take away that there is change coming to the workplace. And to give you an example, people who work in McDonald's on the front line, they didn't need system skills many years ago. Now they've got orders coming in from mobile apps, from they have these like little touch screens in this, and then the more traditional way. And so people are going to be affected by this, even at the lowest, what we consider to be the lowest skilled jobs in the workplace. And it only accelerates from there. So jobs that have been done a certain way for quite a bit of time are going to change. That's one thing that we really want to emphasize. The second thing is the reskilling piece of it, which is so important because when people are reskilling at mid-career, it's important that they get a solid preparation. But there's another piece to it. Most of them are they're adults with responsibilities. They either have kids, parents, mortgages, or a combination thereof. And so the traditional degree program may or may not meet their needs. And so coming up with a program that allows them to get back into the workplace with skills that are needed are really important. And along with that, when people go into the workforce, it's really important, or re-enter the workforce, it's important to remember that their skills they're not permanent. They're always going to need to be updated. And even if it's not a major reskilling, they're going to need to do something. And then finally, that whole issue of financial wellness that is Yvonne's passion point in this book. Because a lot of your financial wellness and the decisions you make about reskilling have a long-term impact, and they will affect other life choices that you have. And so what's really important is that financial considerations be a part of all of your reskilling decisions. So I think those are some of the three of the main things that we hope people will take away, that there are changes are coming, that there are a variety of options, and we need to make sure that people are able to get reskilled as completely as necessary, but as quickly and cost effectively as possible, especially when it's coming out of the worker's pocket. And people need to be aware of the financial implications of that. I'd say one other thing too that's on the list of things to look at, the way people find jobs these days is really, really different with all the automated tools out there. But one thing that's really interesting, we saw a job ad in the course of working on this book where someone actually said, I can't remember the exact words, but something like, people who actually heard about this job from a human being, we welcome your applications especially. So the role of people is still going to be important. It's just not the only way people find jobs.
Right. Right. And I really appreciate the way that you set up the article talking about the digital transformation, which is very much akin to the Industrial Revolution in how our society is experiencing change, and things that have become so accepted and so commonplace, like Siri and Amazon's Alexa and those types of things. Just really, it's very interesting to set that stage, and yet to talk about that transformation that occurs in people, that occurs in the job spaces, and the fact that digitizing the work environment is becoming, it's just on a fast track. And I would imagine, do you have any thoughts as far as, in light of the COVID pandemic and so on, do you have any thoughts as far as that is concerned with the speed of digitizing the workplace or remote work and those types of things?
Well, we were finishing up the book. Actually, we had really finished, I think, the final writing when COVID started. So we went back in and tried to add some comments about things to be aware of. Nobody knows exactly how all this will end up, but we do know that employers have seen the benefits of telework in terms of the money they save and the quality of the work. So we know that those options are probably going to be out there forever. And we thought they were coming anyway. We just didn't know it was with this speed. And I think the whole business of whether teams need to meet in person or meet virtually, there are some companies already saying we want people coming back because it's important to have those team skills and work together. That just speaks again to what workers need before they go into the job. And I think we'll see how it all plays out with COVID, but there are certainly things to pay attention to.
Yeah, I'd like to add, one of the things that we have observed is that many of the things that happened with COVID were happening anyway. They just got put onto hyperspeed as a result of this. Exactly what stays afterwards, that remains to be seen. Some things like telework, I think, will be always on the table. Some employers will be more comfortable with it than others. And we saw that during the pandemic. Some employers were really trusted their workers to get the job done. Others wanted the camera on 24/7 on their employees. And I think that kind of tells you some of it's about individual comfort, but if the employer doesn't have it, they're not going to offer it. But other things are going to go back to the way they were pre-pandemic. I was just reading stats on, believe it or not, grocery sales. And they were like, grocery stores, their profit went through the roof last year when COVID first happened. But now as things reopen, they're actually not, they're not earning as much as they did 2 years ago, which they're using as the point of comparison, because the old habits are coming back of people eating out, they're buying prepared foods and stuff like that. So exactly how everything plays out, some of that waits to be seen.
Well, thanks for sharing those perspectives. And I can say, too, as far as the rest of the journal is concerned, there are a number of pieces in there that relate and kind of touch on the whole COVID, the impact of COVID and so on in the workspace and so on, particularly in adult education. So thanks for those additional comments. Well, let me ask you, do you have any other additional insights or additional comments that either of you would like to share?
Well, one thing we like to, this is, kind of it summarizes some of the, but it touches on, I think is probably a better word, the main arguments in our book, Career Anxiety, Guidance for Tough Times. And so that's what we call our passion project. And Yvonne came in and saved us on that one. And it began with basically the discussion of a fourth industrial revolution, which you kind of referred to earlier in the interview, has been around for several years. And they always say the solution for the worker is going to be that, and they always predict large numbers of people are going to be displaced. And the solution was always training, but it never went any further than that. And it's like, well, all training can't fix all problems. And when we started digging deeper, it's like, well, there's more than training going on. And that's how we ended up shifting our focus into this book. And what we share in this article is a particular piece of that that's geared towards adult educators, but there's a broader perspective about how the workplace got where it is, why financial wellness is different, more than just the change of the job search. Some of the conditions of employment have changed drastically too, that workers need to be aware of that. And we talk about those issues. And we also talk about reskilling options at length, including a model about when people should start looking to reskill. And usually kind of like job seeking, the ideal time is when you don't need to reskill and when you don't need to find a job. So
one other thing I would add, Don, is that we talk in there about where jobs are today and going forward, what's happening in the rural areas, what's happening in the urban areas, suburban areas, and just a reality check there on when you're preparing for a new job or you're the one who's preparing the learner, the reality of what that means in terms of opportunities, moving, all of those kinds of things. So we think it's important to have a well-rounded perspective around what's going on. That yes, it's skills. Yes, it's digitization. Yes, it's all those things. But it's also some other things related to the way we've typically worked in this country that's changing, and the relationships we've had with employers that's changing. And all of that together makes it a little overwhelming sometimes if you don't have a way to walk through it and think about it.
Right, right. Well, thanks to each of you for taking the time out to speak with our audience and to just give them some more insights into your book, Career Anxiety, but also into the article. The article is called New Job Searches, Constantly Upgrading Skills and Financial Wellness, Challenges for Workers Identified in the Literature. So again, Yvonne, Saul, thank you very much for taking time and I wish you well.
Thank you, Don.
Have a great day.